Hi, my name's Phil and I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the initial attempts by the Brexiteer Prime Minister Boris Johnson to prop up the farming industry that is about to fall flat on its arse. Now, the UK farmers who are about to be badly hit by Brexit are no longer looking like having a government shield to protect them once it happens. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, in the event of a no-deal Brexit, the most immediate effects on the general population are of course going to be difficulties in getting food and medicines across the border between the UK and the remaining EU member states. This is not only bad news for consumers, most especially of course in the UK, but also the producers. If food can't get across the border, then the farmers who produce it are in deep trouble. With the necessary checks on livestock in particular, British farmers are going to find themselves with animals bred for food that can't be sold on the continent. And it's not just the checks that are the issue. Even the meat that can get to the European market will be much more expensive due to the tariffs that will suddenly apply. To combat this, the UK government had said that it would simply buy up the excess meat to protect farmers for a short time. It was only ever a short-term solution, but I suppose from the farmers' point of view the hope was that the government would wake up to the reality and arrange agreements with the EU before these measures ran out. However, in another spectacular example of Brexiteers providing half-baked solutions off the top of their heads, Michael Gove, the minister who drew up these plans, failed to take account of the fact that there was nowhere to store this meat that they were going to buy. Now, I could get on my socialist high horse and say that storage isn't a problem if they used the food to help out the poor and hungry in the country, a proportion of the population that is going to rapidly increase in the event of a no-deal Brexit. But this is a Conservative government here. There is no profit for their rich mates in using public money to feed the poor that they refuse to even acknowledge exist. This despite the latest official figures saying that 4.7 million people are living in persistent poverty in this country, with 2.4 million working people in poverty as well. Goodness only knows what the real figure will be when Brexit hits. But no, although the government thinks that it can set aside money to buy off the meat from farmers at the point of slaughter, if it means using it to stop people starving, then they'd rather not do it at all. So the plan is looking a little bit tricky without the capacity to store it. Extra storage can't be found because companies have already been buying up available storage ahead of Brexit, and it's at capacity now. In fact, we've been at capacity since September last year. There is also no prospect to increase capacity because doing so takes 3 years. Just about the amount of time that the government have had to plan for this, but did nothing. The chief executive of the Cold Chain Federation has said that the government hasn't even been talking to the storage industry about this issue. Yet more evidence that ministers are simply saying things to prevent objections to their insane plans, but they're not actually taking any action to follow through on anything they say. The issue, if we take lamb as a good example, is that we export over a third of it, and most of it is to the EU. That lamb, even if we can get it across the border, will then be 40 to 50% more expensive due to tariffs. And it's all very well the government saying that they will find the farmers new markets. Those new markets will have the same tariffs, but be even more expensive due to greater transport costs. So good news for those of us in the UK that like a bit of Welsh lamb, as the cost is likely to decrease by about 24%. But very bad news for the sheep farmers and farmers of other livestock. But agriculture will be very badly hit as well. Peter Wilding, the prominent lawyer who is credited for coining the term Brexit in the first place, has been discovering that although UK farming it's the UK industry that is going to be the most at threat from Brexit, they seem to be utterly unaware of this. In surveys, there's about a quarter of farmers who are actually in favour of the no-deal Brexit being pursued by Boris Johnson. This is despite such an event meaning they will almost certainly be wiped out. Wilding points out that it isn't just about individual farms either, but those rural communities that will be devastated. I suppose it's a bit like the industrial town that I live in, Scunthorpe. The loss of one industry has a knock-on effect on others as there's suddenly less money to spend in the town, so other businesses go under as well. If a farm goes under, they don't need to hire staff. They don't need products and services from the businesses in the area. So it hits everyone, and pretty soon there's no community there at all. Unless you can persuade the wealthy Brexiteers who will have made a packet to come over, buy up all the cottages and shoot grouse. And it's not just the farmers in favour that aren't preparing. Surveys of farm owners have revealed that their concerns for their industry include rural broadband, planning procedures, fly tipping, commodity prices, a couple of other things which are really important. But there wasn't much emphasis on Brexit being a concern. And if there's one thing that's guaranteed to make a bad situation worse, it's not doing anything about it. And as the old saying goes, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And if farmers are not taking any action to try and Brexit-proof any part of their business, and it seems most are not, then they're making their futures and that of their rural communities impossible. So is there any silver lining for UK farming with Brexit? Well, some Scottish farmers seem to think there may be. Currently, the way farming subsidies are allocated by the EU, it can be based on the suitability of the land. Because a lot of Scottish farming takes place on challenging land that isn't much in demand for anything else, it hasn't received a lot of funding. The UK could choose to rewrite the subsidy rules, and the UK government has suggested that Scottish farmers would benefit. However, we are talking about a Conservative government here who believes that they are going to change the rules to give less money to farmers in Tory voting counties in England and more to Tory hating regions of Scotland. In addition, as I've already noted, the government are telling everyone that they will do better after Brexit, despite having to promise billions to help out those who would be knackered and without coming up with any workable plans to protect any industry in the country, least of all farming. Scottish farmers also suggested that the government raises the cap of seasonal agricultural workers coming into the country from Europe. Hang on, what's this? We have restrictions on people coming into the country from the EU? That's not what the Brexiteers were saying, was it? But the best I can say is that Scottish farmers think that it's possible for them to personally benefit, but it would come at the cost of farmers elsewhere, and it is an idea reliant on support from a Conservative government. So I think it's fair to say that UK farming is pretty boned, and that as an industry that was largely in favour of Brexit, and a good portion of it still seems to be, it's going to look pretty silly if we don't manage to stop Boris Johnson this autumn. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click on the Patreon link for details, and until next time, I'll see you later.